you had a good week, even in the actual situation. Okay, so before we start, as usual, we're gonna adjust our motivation, thinking that we are very fortunate because we are still alive. We have this precious human rebirth. We have met the Buddha Dharma, not only, but the Mahayana Dharma. And this means that, again, today, many opportunities are present to us to create the cause of a vast happiness for the future, and also slowly to eliminate the cause of suffering. Okay, so in terms of happiness, we can distinguish the temporal happiness and the ultimate happiness. So with respect to the temporal happiness, which are a good situation in cyclic existence, this is what we have now. See, this is what we have now. We have considered as one of the highest form of existence, and we can see that it is way not enough, and we do not pass beyond suffering. We have always something that doesn't go right in our mind or in our body outside. So we only experience problem and insatisfaction on a daily basis. So we should raise our motivation, thinking that our mind by nature is completely pure, and all this mental distortion, all of this affliction, all of this afflicted state do arise only due to causes and conditions, and they do not penetrate the nature of the mind. Therefore, by applying ourselves to the teachings, and in particular to generate our mental continuum, the true path that understand the reality, the mode of abiding of phenomena, and in particular to realize the nature of our mind, we can separate ourselves, we can uproot from our mind all of this distorted, all of this mental affliction, and experience an unconditioned state of happiness. You see, our mind is not anymore aggravated by anything. Okay, so that the mind being in tune with reality, he abides in that state and is functioning, only produce serenity and happiness. So this is individual nirvana. Okay, it is something that we have to long for, and but in terms of motivation, we should again not be satisfied with this, and take into consideration all sentient beings that are exactly like us. They wish for greater and greater happiness. Nevertheless, they experience only difficulty, and they are very confused with respect to the cause of happiness and the cause of suffering, and only trying to increase their own welfare, their own happiness. They only meet with unfortunate circumstances as a result. Okay, so we should again raise our motivation, thinking that if we applied ourselves to the Mahayana teachings, so not only we develop the wisdom side, the profound side of the teaching, the view, but if we associate this view, this understanding of reality, with the quality of great compassion and bodhicitta, and we train into the sixth perfection, then we can ripen our mind, and that mind can become a source of happiness and wealth and happiness and peace for others as well. Okay, so this full potential is the state of Buddhahood. So we should think in this way, that through our practice in hearing, reflecting, and meditating, may we actualize the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So that should be our motivation for us today. Okay, and with this motivation in mind, okay, we are going to recite the Heart Sutra, and then we will recite the refuge prayer, and then we move on with the class.
I prostrate to the Arya triple gem. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagwan was dwelling on Mass of Vultures mountain in Rajgir, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagwan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Lokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aryavlokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Sharadvati Putra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to one some possible, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared Tayata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhiswaha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Lokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagwan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharadvati Putra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Lokiteshvara, and those surrounding in the entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagwan.
Sangye anjo donzo ge jonam la jonjo bado dane kepsu ji adangi jinzo ge pe sonan ge adrola penche sangye droba jo sangye anjo donzo ge jonam la jonjo bado dane kepsu ji sangye jinzo ge pe sonan ge adrola penche sangye droba jo sangye anjo donzo ge jonam la jonjo bado dane kepsu ji Okay, thank you. So maybe I can share my screen. And, okay. So this is pretty much where we are. Okay. So we have gone through the training, okay, of the beings of the small capacity. We are now inside of we are finishing, almost finishing the training of the being of the intermediate capacity, and then later we'll move on to the training of the being of the great capacity. So to reassume the entity of those training, okay, this is excellently done by Lama Tsong Khapa in his text called The Three Principal Aspects of the Past. I mean, if you don't know this text, please try to get it, because it is a synthesis of all the stages of the past, and in a very, very few lines and few words. Lama Tsong Khapa really clearly laid out the entity of the training and the measure of having actually completed that training. So it is very, very clear. Okay, and so in terms of the first scope, he says that freedom and endowment are difficult to find, and life has no time to spare. By gaining familiarity with this, attraction to the appearance of this life is reversed. So you see, in a very, very few lines, he explained how to disengage the mind from being obsessed with this life. And basically, there's two things to contemplate that we have seen together: the freedom and endowments, which mean the precious human rebirth, and the life has no time to spare. This is the contemplation on death and impermanence. So with those two contemplations, see, the reflecting on the precious human rebirth and death and impermanence, then slowly the mind is disengage the appearance of this life. And then he moves on. He said, by thinking over and over again that action and the effect are unbetraying, and repeatedly contemplating the misery of cyclic existence, attraction to the appearance of future life is reversed. So you see, now we are in the context where someone tried to generate disenchantment as well for the eventual happiness that one can meet in the future, by understanding that everything in cyclic existence is by nature suffering. So how do you do that? How do you come to wish for a complete liberation and not only something attractive and pleasant in cyclic existence? And he lays out the training. You see, there's two things. One is contemplating that action and the effect is unbetraying. And the second one, repeatedly contemplating the miseries of cyclic existence. And this is what we have started to do last time. Okay, and he said that the attraction, in this way, the attraction of the appearance of future life is reversed. So in terms of the contemplating the attraction, contemplating the suffering of cyclic existence, there's several contemplation to be done. One is to contemplate the six general suffering in general, as we've seen last time, and also to contemplate in particular the suffering of the human beings, which are 7 or 8. Okay, 8, here there are 7, but in Lama Tsong Khapa, in his lam-rim Chenmo, there are 8, because he include the suffering of the aggregate. Okay, and now we have to do another contemplation in terms of suffering. Okay, it is the 3 types of suffering. Okay, it is I'm not sure if it is present in here. No, it is not there. Okay. Anyway, we have to contemplate these 3 types of suffering, which are very important. Okay. So the 3 types of suffering are the suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, and the all-pervasive compounding suffering. So in terms of the suffering of suffering, you see, it is very easy to understand, because even animals, they understand the suffering of suffering, and even animals, they wish to be free from the suffering of suffering. It is basically any type of mental or physical discomfort, okay, from the headache up to the terminal illnesses. All of this is included in the suffering of suffering. Okay, Lama Tsong Khapa in lam-rim Chenmo, he explained that it is similar to an inflamed boil that is in contact with an irritant. There is a painful feeling. Okay, the mind is tormented. Okay, and that is the suffering of suffering. Okay, so inside of the suffering of suffering, we include not only the feeling itself, but the whole mind and its concomitant, and as well as the object which is observed, which is the source in somehow of the suffering. Okay, so this is very easy to understand, and even animals they understand that. And basically, when we think about happiness, you see, us human being, obscured human beings, when we think about happiness, we only think about being free from that, basically. So if we are free from that, that's it. It's all contaminated happiness. Okay, and then we have to move on to analyze now a little bit more to have like a deeper insight of the nature of our experience, and we have to move to understand the suffering of what we call the suffering of change. So maybe I'll come back again a couple of minutes on the suffering of suffering. So the suffering of suffering is also include, you see, all our daily problems that we have, and we suffer from cold, heat, hunger, thirst, bad view, the eyesight. You see, the eyesight is not good. We have fatigue, we have stress. You see, the list is infinite. Okay, so so this is pretty much the suffering of suffering. So the suffering of suffering is obvious and is experienced by everybody, ourselves, our friend, our neighbor. You see, our parents, our family. You have there is this suffering afflicted by war, poverty, racism, you see, epidemic, or political oppression. All of this, you see, it's included into the suffering of suffering. It is very vast, okay, very vast, and it is it's present, okay, at any moment, almost. Okay, and then so in terms of now the suffering of change. So what is the suffering of change? It is defined. It is what we call what we us call happiness. You see, what we call happiness, it is what in Buddhism we call the suffering of change. So it is basically, if we look for the entity, the entity of this suffering of change, it is a happiness feeling. The feeling of happiness that we experience, you see, when you meet with a pleasant object, whatever, you know, you go on vacation on the seaside and then you're happy, you know, this is what we call the suffering of change. So it is a happiness feeling. And we also, for the same, you know, we include the mind, the concomitant, and we include the observed object. See, all of this is the suffering of change. So Lama Tsong Khapa explained that it is so before we had the boil, you see, in contact with an irritant. Now let's say it is the boil, okay, which is in contact. So it is the feeling of that inflamed boil when it's in contact with the cold water. You see, it's cold water. So you have like this, so that's the feeling of change. So now we have to understand, so there are also other religions and spiritual traditions, they wish the sentient beings to be free from the suffering of change. For example, in India, all of this incredible training in meditative concentration, the scope was to be free from the suffering of change. Okay, so what is this suffering of change? It is this pleasant feeling. So now we have to understand why it is called suffering. Why it is not just called happiness? Why it is called suffering? So it is called suffering for different reasons. One, because it does not last. Okay, it does not last. It comes to an end. And then we are left, you see, empty-handed with unsatisfaction, unfulfilled, the only desire to re-experience it again. And it also increases the mental affliction, like attachment. Okay, we get attached. Every time that for us untrained sentient beings, you see, every time that there is a pleasant feeling, necessarily there is attachment for us. It's very difficult. You have to be very careful and very trained to be able to spend like one day without attachment. It is easy to spend one day without aversion, without anger and this kind of mental affliction. But one day without attachment, it is very difficult because it arises in our mind as soon as we meet something pleasurable. Can be food, can be drink, can be a visual object, music, sound, whatever. As soon as it is pleasant, attachment. Okay. So another way to look at this, so we have seen this pleasant experience, they do not last. Okay. So therefore, at the end, we will only meet with insatisfaction. Now, another way to look at it, Aryadeva say in the 400 stanzas, it is this text on the Madhyamika, he said that happiness is destroyed by its own cause. You see, what makes you happy today will make you suffer tomorrow. That's it. That's the rule. There is nothing that it is always happiness, in our world. See, it's nothing. So you see, if it is a real source of happiness, if it is as we think it is, where happiness is inherent, it is inherent to the situation, it is inherent to the object, it is inherent to the person to make me happy. You see, then happiness will increase exponentially with the contact. See? So the more you use the object, the more you're in presence with the person, the more you stay in this situation, then happiness should proportionally increase. But this is not the case. This is not the case. The more you indulge into your source of happiness, the more happiness decreases. You see, eventually everything transforms into suffering. Everything transforms into suffering. So watching movies and music, relationship, sex, whatever, eating. So it is pleasant at the beginning, and at some point it becomes suffering. You see, it becomes suffering. So we have to be aware of this. You see, you have to understand that our support of happiness are not in the nature of happiness, because if something is by nature happiness, then happiness should grow exponentially. The more you use it, the more happiness should increase, because it is in the nature of happiness. You understand? While things are more into the nature of suffering, they are in the nature of suffering, because the more you use it, the more your suffering increase. So it's like putting your hand in a fire. You see, you know that putting your hand in a fire is suffering. So, and the suffering augments, increase exponentially as long as you put your hand into the fire. It does not become bliss at some point, you see. So everything that we can use in cyclic existence has this nature, where it transforms into suffering, or like manifest suffering increase exponentially as proportionally to your abiding into the object, you're using the object. Okay? So we have to understand that those things, you see, by nature, they are not able to fulfill or wish for everlasting happiness. Okay? So another way to look at it is that happiness for us, and I would say like 98% of our pleasant experience in cyclic existence, they are directly connected to the diminishing, the fading of an experience of suffering. Okay, so for us, what we call happiness, what we call happiness, this suffering of change, you see, happiness, what it is just a fading of discomfort. And that fading of discomfort is conceptualized, you see, is misperceived as happiness. I'm going to explain to you. For example, in Western Europe, you see, when summer comes, so means right now, people are obsessed with getting to the seaside. So that is the summum, the maximum, the summit of the summer experience is to go on the seaside and to lay down on the sand, you see, under the sun. That's the concept of happiness for the summer in Western Europe. And so you see, at the beginning, so you lay down, you see, on the sand, and it's hot and everything. And at the beginning, you see, there's it's kind of pleasurable. It's okay. But slowly, because of the impermanent nature of everything, that slowly transform into a suffering. It becomes uncomfortable to stay under the sun. You see, It's uncomfortable. So what do? You stand up and you dive into the fresh water, okay? And then you experience like happiness, you see, this happiness. So, but that happiness, you see, is directly derived from the ceasing of the suffering of heat. The suffering of heat fade due to entering in contact with the fresh water. So if you stay also too long into this fresh water, because of the impermanent nature, slowly, it becomes uncomfortable as well. You see? So what do, you get out of the water and again, you lie on the hot sand under the sun, and then it's pleasurable again. You see? So all our life, we just do that. You see? We just move from one situation. We haven't identified as suffering. You see, we even don't know why exactly. It's like it's mechanic. You see, it's non-analytical. It's spontaneous. We just seek for new objects. We just look for new experience. We just want to meet new people. We just want to change horizon. You see, visit places or whatever. Just because you see, we are always trying to get out an uncomfortable situation, unsatisfying situation, unpleasant situation, and the meeting with this new situation, this new object that we acquire, you see, produce this fading of discomfort, and we think that this is happiness, and we get attached to that object, that situation, or whatever, thinking that inherently, from his own side, it is able to produce happiness. But actually, the happiness only depends on the previous suffering. For example, we all have this concept that maybe like eating pizza is pleasurable. Okay, so in Italy also here we are a bit obsessed with pizza. Okay, it's a national obsession. So, but eating pizza, you see, is only pleasurable if there is a suffering of hunger. I mean, if there is no suffering of hunger, eating is a pure suffering, is 100% suffering. So we all have this concept that meeting people on Saturday night to see and eating pizza together is pleasurable, but it's only pleasurable because you have you feel a bit lonely and you feel a bit hungry, you know. So you put all those things together and it becomes pleasurable. But if you stay a bit too much with your friend and if you eat a bit too much of pizza, then it becomes suffering at some point and you want to be by yourself. See? So everything that we experience in cyclic existence is by nature, you see, suffering. That is real nature. So it's like drinking like cold Coca-Cola, you see. It can be perceived as a source of pleasure, but it is only pleasurable if it's very hot outside and if you're very thirsty. Because if you go in some country where it's minus 25, you see, drinking the cold Coca-Cola outside might not be that pleasurable. So you see, though, our pleasure is directly what we call pleasure. It's just a mere fading of a previous suffering, of a previous unsatisfying situation. So we have not labeled it as suffering. You see, it is not labeled as suffering, but nevertheless, we are just a push, you see, toward turning on the TV, toward turning on putting some music, or calling your friends, or going outside, or opening the fridge. But actually, what drives us, you see, toward those situations, those actions, because there is a problem here. There is a suffering, you see. There is a uncomfortable. There is a discomfort. There is a unsatisfaction. It is there, and as soon as it fades, that's happiness. That's happiness. But the problem is that happiness is destroyed by its own cause. So very soon, again, the suffering becomes manifest, and then you need to move on towards something else, and then again, and then again, and then again. And this is since we are born. Okay, since beginner's times. Is like this, you know? So basically, this is what we are attached to. We are attached to all of these things that by nature are suffering, And what we call pleasure, it's only a fading of a previous discomfort. You see, so it's like you have two scales. You see the two scale of a balance. See? Two scale of a balance. So you have the suffering, a manifest suffering. You see, like for example, hunger. You are like starving, you know, starving, uncomfortable, and then you start to eat. Start to put food inside. So what happens is that the suffering of anger fades, and the suffering of eating start to increase. You see, so at the beginning, it is so subtle that we do not notice that it is suffering. But then the suffering of eating is there, and then slowly, slowly, it becomes manifest. It becomes manifest, and then it becomes suffering of suffering. So then you have to open up your pants and everything, and you have to lay down, or you have to do something. You see, because the suffering has become manifest. So everything, you see, that we all our pleasure, if you push a little bit, you see, all what we call pleasure, it is just a latent suffering that fade. It is the fading of a previous suffering, nothing else. And that fading of a previous suffering, it is what we call happiness. It's a little bit like going to the bathroom. Okay? No one would say, oh, going to the bathroom is pleasurable. It's just a relief. But this is what it is. Everything that we experience in cyclic existence that we label pleasure, it is just a relief. In essence. So yeah, that's what it is. You see, so yeah, that's what it is. So at the same time, you see, you have the suffering of anger that stops, and the suffering of eating starts, but it is very subtle. Okay, very subtle. So what is you see, if you push a little bit, you see what is our pleasure? Our pleasure are just non-manifest suffering of suffering. They will become manifest eventually at some point. But we do not, you see, we don't have this, we lack this clarity. We're like some kind of bewildered, you see, confused. We do not see it. We lack this clarity to understand that those are not, you know, pleasurable by nature. That's only the fading of a previous discomfort, you know, and we even do not see, even if we experience it, we do not see that the suffering is become manifest. It is suffering by nature. You see, in the sutra, there is this explanation when the Buddha was explaining this to Ananda. He said it's like you go for a walk. You see, you go for a walk, and very soon it becomes uncomfortable, so you just rest. And very soon it also becomes uncomfortable, so you walk again. You see. So, and it is infinite. So there is no, you see, there is no possible satisfaction if we spend our life like this. There is no possible. So what does that mean? Mean that in cyclic existence, there is absolutely nothing you can depend on to really fulfill our wishes. You see, of lasting happiness. Lasting happiness. We only meet with unsatisfaction. Not only that, but by indulging, or by only, you see, looking for those experiences, being confused and looking for those experiences, the mind will only get aggravated, because we will get attached to more and more object, being confused to more and more object, you see. And as the more we get attached, also all the other mental affliction will increase. For example, hostility automatically for everything that prevents you to obtain whatever you desire. So yeah. So basically, what is the suffering of change? The suffering of change, this is whatever our pleasant experience that we have. What it is by nature, it is a non-manifest suffering of suffering. That's what it is. Non-manifest. Does it make sense what I say to you? Yeah. Yes. No. Okay. You have to think about it. Okay. So this is very important. Okay. So I'm not saying stop eating pizza with your friend. Stop drinking Coca-Cola in summer. Don't go to the beach anymore. I'm not saying that. Okay. I'm just saying that while you do it, understand what you're doing. Okay, take it for what it is. What the problem is, the problem is not those experience. The problem is what those experience leads to because of confusion. Yeah? So continue, to do whatever you like, to eat whatever you like, but be aware that this is the truth of suffering. When you're in your house, you see, and I don't know, like maybe around 10 o'clock in the evening, you stand up and you open the fridge, think, oh, this is the truth of suffering. Okay. So we have to be clear. We have to take things for what they are. The problem is that we take things for what they are not, and then we get confused, we get obscured, you see, and we wander. So that's what we don't want. Is we don't want to wander anymore. Okay. So yeah. So think about this. Suffering of suffering is just there is a latent like unsatisfaction, suffering, and as soon as it fades, way happiness. But that's not. Okay, that's not. So, for example, someone might think that buying oneself, you see, everything that he needs, having the possibility, to buy some stuff all the time, this is happiness. But actually, no, it's just the fading of the suffering of insatisfaction. That's just what it is. It's like when you have like a mosquito bites, you see, when you have mosquito bites and you scratch yourself, there is relief. Wouldn't it be better not to have mosquito bites on the first place? So this is what attachment is. You see, it's like mosquito bites. So you scratch it, you experience a relief of suffering, and you think this is happiness. But it is not. It's contamination, 100%. Okay, and then we have to move on to the third type of suffering, which is the most important and the most subtle one. It's very difficult. It is difficult to understand, to have a good grasp at it, and to be able to generate the wish to be free from that. It requires time investigation. Okay, so this is 100% a Buddhist concept. The second one is common also in other spiritual tradition, as we've said, for example, in India, those practice of the concentration. You see, they aim as overcoming the suffering of change. They want to find a perfect state. For example, it is posited in some tradition, philosophical tradition, that the forced concentration, the attainment of the forced concentration, in particular, one of the subdivision called Great Result, it is the cessation of the suffering of change there. Okay, but it is impermanent also. Okay, so in terms of the third type of suffering, this is only a Buddha. To get free from that is a Buddhist concept. It is so the suffering, the all-pervasive compounding suffering, it is linked to equanimity feeling. So you see, the suffering of suffering is suffering of feeling. It is linked to a suffering feeling. The suffering of change, it is linked to a happiness feeling, contaminated happiness feeling. The suffering of all-pervasive, the suffering of conditionality, or the all-pervasive suffering, it is linked to a feeling of a neutral feeling, neither happiness nor suffering. And also you have to associate the mind and all the concomitant and all the observed object. See, so it is the basis for the other two. It kind of pervades. What is the all-pervasive compounding suffering? It is the mere fact to have those 5 aggregates. Because I have those body and mind, it's 5 aggregate of form, which is the body, and then you have a feeling, discrimination, compositional factor, and consciousness, which are the mind, basically split due to pedagogical reason. There is this presentation. Anyway, the 5 aggregates, which are the physical, psychic component of the person, so the body and mind. So as long as we have this body and mind, which is produced, you see, it is projected, it is produced by karma and affliction, then we will experience the other two suffering. We will experience the other two suffering. It is the basis for the other two. So we have this body and mind, which are they have like dysfunctional characteristics. They're imbued with dysfunctional characteristics, and therefore, due to the presence of those dysfunctional characteristics, at any moment we can experience the other two suffering. At any moment, for example, right now you might be relaxed at home, you see, but then suddenly you might hear something you don't like and your mind get aggravated. Yeah. You can get upset just because you have this potential, or you can, or you're in good health, you see, in the morning, and then in the evening you can get sick. You can be very sick. Just because you have those aggregate, everything is possible. So the all pervasive compounding suffering, is to have those 5 aggregates, and then it's like being on the verge, you see, on the verge of experiencing suffering at any moment. The cause and condition, they gathered, you see, or you start to think like inappropriately, unskillfully, and then you suffer in your heart, you suffer in your mind, or you suffer in your body. The temperature drops a few degrees, and then you suffer. The temperatures rise a few degrees, you suffer. You hear something you don't like, you suffer. You see something you don't like, you suffer. Or you see something that you like, and you suffer as well because you don't have it. That's it. That's it. So because you have these 5 aggregates, you have to be born again and again. You have to get old again and again. You have to get sick again and again, and you have to die again and again. So that's it. And so this, so the all-pervasive compounding suffering is also, you see, being caught in this cycle of like caught in this network of problems that is infinite. You see, they arise one after the other. One moment when this very instant, this very experience, okay, this very instant of body and mind is the result of past suffering, and it is the cause of future suffering. That very instant, it is the result of past suffering, and it is the cause for future suffering. So it is being, the all-pervasive compounding suffering, it is being caught up in this due to karma and affliction, due to ignorance, you see, due to being confused, due to the nature of reality. We have mental affliction. Due to mental affliction, we accumulate action, and the action, they project the 5 aggregates. So basically, we are a result which experiences itself instant by instant. That's what it is. And what is the person? What is this? This is the result that experiences itself instant by instant. And while I'm experiencing myself instant by instant, I also create the cause for other experience in the future. So you see, and we are bound, okay, bound by karma, bound by karma. It doesn't mean that there is a fatality. You see, you are born, it's going to be your life. You see, it's not like fatality, but somehow your experience are limited to a certain, you see, limited to a certain possibility which accord with the nature of your past action. So you can travel in this very life. For example, we have this human life, blah blah, and the nature of our experience can be infinite and multiples. Okay, but nevertheless, they are circumscribed to a certain potential, predisposition and potential that correspond to the causes that have been created. Cannot step beyond that in terms of the law of cause and effect. That's what it is. That's the all-pervasive compounding suffering. It is being caught up into cyclic existence. What is cyclic existence? Cyclic existence is not a place. Okay, it is not a place. Cyclic existence, it has been defined by the fifth Dalai Lama in this way. It is been to connect with the contaminated aggregate under the power of karma and affliction. That's cyclic existence. To reagree, to connect with the body and mind, contaminated body and mind, by the power of karma and affliction. So everything that you experience is determined by your action, your very appearance. You don't have the control over your very appearance. And there is this aggregation of causes and conditions that are not under our own power, and then we experience happiness or suffering according to what gathered together. According to what gathered together. So there is no fatality. Understand that this is not a fatality. It's very different. Yeah. It's just that even though we might have the illusion of control, you see, oh, I have control over my life. That's a wrong conception. That would be a mistaken conception. Okay. So those you see those five aggregates, you can meditate like this. You see those five aggregates. It is like a wound, a deep wound that never really heals, and you always try to protect it, but you always bump here and there, and suffer. That's the five aggregate. So as long as you have the five aggregate, you're bound to suffering. To suffer physically or mentally, or both at the same time, most of the time. It is like a burden. You see, there is a load. In the sutra, the Buddha often he talks about the burden or the load of the five aggregates, you see? And it is like carrying this load over, you see, over a long road with difficult conditions, the heat and everything, and maybe your back is always is hurting, by this load. And so sometimes you rest, but nevertheless, this is not real happiness, because you have to carry on this load and continue and carry on. You see. So what is liberation? What is nirvana? Nirvana is the dropping of the load. The abandonment, you abandon the five contaminated aggregates, and you take rebirth. You see, there is still a rebirth. There is still a rebirth somehow, but it is done by wisdom and compassion. It is not done by karma and affliction. It is so your aggregates, they will not be contaminated aggregate. They will be pure aggregates. So those aggregates will not be in the nature of suffering. So that would be nirvana somehow. So the all-pervasive compounding suffering, it is just being all the time on the verge of a myriad of suffering that can arise in countless ways. Countless ways. There is no certainty. If you think about the worst suffering that you have experienced in this life, you see, in the past, there is no certainty that it cannot arise again. No certainty. Okay, so to wish to get free from this suffering, it is what we call the mind of definite emergence. It is what we call renunciation. And to generate the wish to be free from the all-pervasive compounding suffering, and therefore from cyclic existence, this is the attitude of the being of the middling capacity. So if we go back to this three principal aspect of the past, Lama Tsong Khapa, he says, you see, by thinking over and over again that action and their effect on betraying and repeatedly contemplating the miseries of cyclic existence, which are the three types of suffering, attraction to the appearance of future life means cyclic existence will be reversed. And then after he gives the measure of having actualized this mind of definite emergence, how do you know that you have this mind of definite emergence? And he explained, when, by having trained in that way, there is no arising, even for a second, of attraction to the perfection of cyclic existence, and all day and night, the attention seeking liberation arises, then the thought of definite emergence has been produced. So that's it. Yeah, we have to work a little bit, a bit more. Okay. So you see, everything basically from morning to evening, day and night, everything you do, it's only to attain liberation. That's the measure of having actualized the attitude of the beings of the smalls, of the intermediate scope. For us, you see, almost from the morning and the evening, in general, whatever we do is to gain happiness of this life. Happiness of this life. So this means that we do not even have the attitude of the lower scope, which is the mind intended toward happiness of next life. So we have to understand that all of this attitude, all of this understanding, you see, only arise due to contemplation again and again and again, investigating again and again all of those things and bringing it to mind again and again, and then slowly, you see, the changes arise, understanding arise, wisdom arise, and the attitude change. But it has to be brought by a repeated process of contemplation, meditation. Okay, this cannot arise merely by knowing it, by studying it. You see, I read the books, I understand. I know it. It is not enough. It has to be supplemented, and this is the main thing. And meditation is just the tool for the mind to change. So we have to, again, to bring to the mind the things, you see, to expose the mind to this understanding, and this will ensure change of attitude. Yeah. So in terms of our text, we are stanza 19. Okay, if it's if you do not put effort into contemplating the true suffering, this is exactly what we have done so far, contemplating true suffering, the fault of cyclic existence, you will not develop a wish for liberation. So again, so this, we can say that we have covered it, okay? And then after it says, if you don't contemplate true origin, so now the origin, the steps of entering cyclic existence, okay, you will not understand how to cut the roots of cyclic existence. Okay, so now we have to discuss a little bit, okay, about the process of entering cyclic existence. Now we have contemplating so far the effect of having entered cyclic existence, which is true suffering. Now we have to discuss a little bit, you see, how you get bound to that. You see, how do you enter? So to do it fully, okay, we will have to study here the 12 links of dependent arising origination. Okay, the 12 links that really explain the cycle, or someone get bound to cyclic existence, and how he experience again and again, you see, this repeated rebirth, contaminated rebirth. And as Nagarjuna says, he says that from 3 arise 2, from 2 arise 7, and again from the 7 arise the 3. the wheel of cyclic existence itself repeatedly turn. Okay, so he explained the 12 links of dependent arising in terms of 3 groups: groups of action, groups of affliction, and groups of result. Okay, of result. So basically, so we cannot go into that. We cannot go into that, but we can explain it like more simply. And in Buddhism, the main cause, I mean, the root of cyclic existence is the distortion of reality. Okay, so we have an appearance, so we have to distinguish between the appearance of true existence and the conception of true existence. Okay, so in terms of you see, if we look, everything seems to exist from its own side. Okay, if I look at there, see there is a table, there's a computer, there is a person, there's this, there's that, and it seems to exist from its own side independently of my mind. It does not depend from my mind. It exists from its own side. It has this ability to set itself up. It exists by its own nature. It exists objectively. You see, all of this means the same thing. It truly exists, means the same thing. It does not, the way it appears is that it does not depend from my mind to exist. Okay, so this appearance is created by long familiarity with ignorance, with the conception of true existence. So you see, ignorance, the root of cyclic existence, the conception of true existence, is a mind. It is a conceptual mind that superimposes on phenomena a mode of existence that they have completely deprived of. It's like a decorating. You see, you are adding something. There are phenomena, and then you add something on the top. What you add something from the side of phenomena is the natural existence from his own side, objective existence. Okay, so you see, we are bound to cyclic existence not because of the appearance, because the appearance, it's another type of obscuration. We are bound to cyclic existence because we believe in those appearances. So that we distinguish 2 types of obscuration. We have what we call the afflictive obscuration and the cognitive obscuration. The afflictive obscuration is this ignorance that conceive that things exist the way they appear. Means they are conceived to exist inherently by way of their own nature. That type of mind, that conceptual mind, that ignorance, it is an obstacle to liberation. So to attain nirvana, you have to get rid of that mind. You have to get rid of that mind. Okay. So the arat stops there. It stops there. And in the individual liberation, the state of arat is completely eliminated the conception of true existence with all the affliction that arise as a consequence. The affliction arise as the consequence of ignorance. It's like a logical answer. We will see that. But the bodhisattva, to attain Buddhahood, you have to eliminate also this second level of obscuration, which are the cognitive obscuration. So the bodhisattva, once he reached the 8th ground, he has completely eliminated from his mind. It's like the arat. He has completely eliminated from his mind the ignorance and all the affliction, but now he's trying to eliminate also the appearance. The appearance is like a mistake. You see, a mistake due to the imprint left on the mind by the conception of true existence. So he will continue on the 8, 9, and 10 ground to purify his mind, to mingle his mind with reality in meditation, to finally eliminate also this subtle level of ignorance, which is called cognitive obscuration. And when the subtle of the subtle is eliminated, that's the state of Buddhahood. So because of this cognitive obstruction, this appearance, you see, the appearance that things exist inherently, that's the problem for the Bodhisattva. For the Bodhisattva, this is the main object of elimination. Appearance of true existence. And because of this appearance, so it is not a mind, it is a factor of appearance, a defect. So because of this, he cannot realize the two truths simultaneously, the conventional truth and the ultimate truth. When the Bodhisattva meditates, he absorbs himself into emptiness and he realizes emptiness directly. At that time, only emptiness appears to his mind. But all the conventional phenomena, they cannot appear. When he erases from his meditative absorption and he enters the subsequent attainment, emptiness do not appear to his mind anymore, but only conventional phenomena appears to his mind. So you see, he cannot see simultaneously the two truths. This is due to this cognitive obscuration. So to attain Buddhahood, you have to eliminate this cognitive obscuration, and then on the state of Buddhahood, simultaneously, you realize the two truths. You realize emptiness, you realize ultimate truth and conventional truth. So the state of Buddhahood, what is the state of Buddhahood? It is a mind which is forever absorbed into emptiness. You never arise anymore from emptiness. And within that meditation emptiness, all phenomena appears. That's the state of Buddhahood. Why? Because the cognitive obscuration has been eliminated. So here, we're not talking about this cognitive obscuration. This is the end of the path for the Bodhisattva. Here, we're talking about the afflictive obscuration or the obstacles to liberation, which is the conception of true existence. Ignorance. So that ignorance, we will deal with this emptiness on the next session, which is the perfection of wisdom. So we will have the whole session on this, okay? But nevertheless, we have to talk about it now because we are talking about what is the root and the origin of suffering. So the origin of suffering, it is karma and affliction. And among those two, affliction are principal. And among all the affliction, the ignorance is the principal one. And in particular, there is a particular what we call the view of the transitory collection. So in terms of presenting the root of cyclic existence inside of the Madhyamika school, there is two possibilities. Or you explain ignorance as the root of cyclic existence, or you present the view of the transitory collection as the root of cyclic existence. So Nagarjuna, he explained ignorance, and Chandrakirti in his Madhyamika, he present the view of the transitory collection. So we have to understand that there is no difference. It is just two different presentations, but they come down to the same thing. What is the view of the transitory collection? The view of the transitory collection, it is the conception of an I included in one's own continuum. So it is very precise. What is the root of cyclic existence? Basically, it is the conception of self. It is the conception that I exist truly. That's the root of cyclic existence. So the conception of an I included in my continuum, this is, according to Chandrakirti, the root of cyclic existence, and it is called the view of the transitory collection. Nagarjuna says the root of cyclic existence is the conception of true existence. So there is no difference because it is the same continuum of ignorance, but we are talking about, you see, like preceding and successive moment of the same continuum of ignorance. Why? Because to have the reification, you see, to reify the I as being intrinsically existent, first you must have the conception of the five aggregate as being truly existent. That's why Nagarjuna, he posits ignorance in general as the root of cyclic existence. So when you say ignorance is the root of cyclic existence, it means that the ignorance conceiving the true existence of phenomena. And in this context, what are the phenomena? They are body and mind. Due to having the conception of body and mind as being truly existent, then successively you have the view of the transitory collection that conceive the person to be truly existent. So this is why at the end, you see, those two presentations, they are not in contradiction. We are talking about the same continuity of ignorance that observe the same object, which is the true existence, that superimposed true existence, but we are just talking about preceding and successive moment of the same continuity of ignorance. So they're just two presentations that are absolutely not in contradiction. But sometimes people are confused because they see, one is presenting ignorance, another one is presenting the view of the transitory collection. So what's the deal there? So that's the juice of it, basically. Okay. So because we have this conception of true existence, because you think that there is because you start to view an I as you start to discriminate I and other. You see, I and other, and because of having this conception of I, you will start to develop attachment for the happiness of the I, and to develop aversion for everything that endanger the scopes of this I. Okay, so here you see you have this notion of self and other that arise, and based on this you develop attachment and aversion, and based on that subsequently you develop all the other views, wrong views, and other mental afflictions. Okay, let's not go into details. We just limit ourselves to the essence because of time. Okay, so in terms of, as I said, what is the root of cyclic existence? It is karma and affliction. Okay, when we talk about the true origin, when you talk about the Four Noble Truths, true suffering, true origin, true cessation, and true path, what is the illustration of true suffering? It is the five aggregates. So you see the five aggregate as a subject. They are suffering. They are true suffering because they are impermanent. They are suffering. They are empty, and they are selfless. And in terms of true origin, you see, what is the true origin? What is the illustration of true origin? It's karma and affliction. That's what it is. And among those two, afflictions are primary. Afflictions are primary. Why? Because in the same way that if we have a seed, you see, there is a seed. If there is no moisture, soil, heat, the sprout will not be produced. In the same way, in the absence of the afflictions, even though you have accumulated karma, that karma will not produce suffering. Okay, so the karma to ripen needs the condition of the affliction. This is why the afflictions are more important. Okay, and let's say completely hypothetically, you see that you have no karma, but then one mental affliction arises. At that time, you start to accumulate karma. At that very moment, you start to accumulate karma. So because we have the view of the transitory collection, you see, the main problem, then we constantly accumulate karma. Constantly. And the karma that we accumulate is of two types. We have the karma which is intention, and we have the karma which is intended action. Okay, so the karma which is intention means it is a mental karma. It is what we develop at the level of the mind, train of thought, involved in harmfulness, for example, or involved into craving. Okay, so that's the two non-virtuous action of the mind. And then you have the seven action that are undertake under the influence of the intention, and this is called intended action. So the killing, stealing, blah 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 blah. All of this, you see, it is called intended action because they are action done under the influence of intention. Okay, so this is the two type of karma, and then that karma, it can be virtuous, non-virtuous, and immovable. The immovable karma, it is the karma which is included into the form realm and into the formless realm. And the virtuous and non-virtuous karma, it is the karma which is included into the desire realm. So under the power of karma and affliction, we can accomplish virtuous karma. And with that, we take rebirth into the higher sphere of the desire realm. And under the karma, under the influence of the mental afflictions, we can also accumulate non-virtuous action, and those non-virtuous action, they will project rebirth into the lower sphere of the desire realm. Okay, that's what it is. I think before I said karma and affliction as the cause, but it's just the afflictions. Okay, these afflictions. Under the affliction, as long we create karma when all the time because we are under the affliction, and in particular we're under ignorance. Because we have ignorance, then we accumulate karma. But that karma is of two types, virtuous and non-virtuous. When there is a mental affliction like attachment, anger, pride, we accumulate non-virtuous karma. And when that ignorance or that ignorance is concomitant with virtuous mental factor, like for example, like love, compassion, faith, you see, equanimity, and then you accumulate a virtuous karma. Okay? So by itself, the view of the transitory collection or ignorance is unspecified. It is not enough for the mind to be non-virtuous. It is not enough. Otherwise, we will never be able to accumulate virtuous action. So ignorance itself, the view of the transitory collection, it is unspecified. So the mind will become non-virtuous if there is, for example, attachment, anger, or pride. See, and the mind will become virtuous if the view of the transitory collection is accompanied by faith, by love, compassion, then it becomes virtuous, and the action that are accumulated, they become a virtuous action, and they will project happiness result. Okay, so in terms of the 12 links, you see, if we look at the 12 links, to go back to the stanza of Nagarjuna that we have quoted at the beginning, from 3 there arise 2, then from 2 arise 7, and then again from the 7 the 3 again. See, so you have ignorance, ignorance as the main cause. Because you have ignorance, you will accumulate what we call the compositional action, which is the action karma. And that compositional action will leave an imprint of the consciousness, the potential. And this is the third link, consciousness. Okay, and that link of consciousness at the time of death, that potential at the time of death will be activated by craving and grasping, the two mental affliction. And as a result of the activation of this potential left on the consciousness by craving and grasping, there will be births, and due to births, there will be aging and death. Okay, and with births come the name and form, the sixth sphere, the contact, and the feeling, which are the different steps, okay, of karma, or the being, of development of the being. Name and form refer to the aggregate, you see, but before the formation of the six spheres, and the sixth sphere is before the ability to use to experience the object before contact, and then once there is contact after, you have the experience feeling. Anyway, it is so to really, I mean, for you in the future would be good if you can study those things, because they bring a really good understanding on how to process, how we reproduce cyclic existence, and how also we can reverse cyclic existence. So it's something to keep in mind for you. Anyway, so in this way, we have covered this second part of the stanza 19, which says, if you do not contemplate true origin, the step of entering cyclic existence, you will not understand how to cut the root of cyclic existence. So basically, to cut the root of cyclic existence, what we have to do, we have to generate the wisdom that understand that the conceived object, you see, of ignorance, or that the conceived object of the view of the transitory collection has never existed, is not existing, and will never exist. Okay, so understand. Ignorance, it is a conceptual mind, and therefore it has a referent object. In technically, it's called the referent object. It has a conceived object. You see, it conceived something. What does it conceive? From the side of the observed object, it conceived inherent existence. If I look at someone, I look at George, okay, then ignorance will conceive George as being inherently existent. So that's cyclic existence. That's the root. Okay. So how do I gain freedom? I gain freedom by generating a wisdom that understand that the conceived object of ignorance, inherently existent George, you see, does not exist, has never existed, and will never exist. So it is the mind that is directly opposed to the conception of true existence. See, the conception of true existence conceived inert existence, and the wisdom is going to realize the non-existence of the conceived object of ignorance. It's directly opposed. And by familiarizing myself again and again with the non-existence of the conceived object of ignorance, non-existence of the conceived object of ignorance, then I can eliminate slowly all the different conception of true existence, and then I gain freedom, liberation. So we have 81 level of the conception of true existence. We have 81 level of affliction. Each affliction can be divided in terms of 81 level, because there is the desire realm, and there is the form realm and the formless realm, and there is for each the division into coarse, medium, and subtle, which are subdivided into the coarse of the coarse, the subtle of the coarse, and the medium of the coarse, making at the end 91 level of affliction. So we will have to realize emptiness directly again and again and again. And every time that our wisdom that directly realizes emptiness is powerful enough to oppose one portion of the conception of true existence, then we obtain what we call true cessation. That's the cessation. A cessation is when the wisdom is powerful enough to eliminate from the mind a portion. You see, we have 81 level, a portion of those 81 level. What's left there is what we call true cessation. So when everything is complete, we have actualized all the true cessation. That is nirvana. Anyway, just some information for you, but okay. All right, so now next stanza, stanza number 20, it says, therefore rely on awareness, definite emergence from existence, and cherish the knowledge that binds you to cyclic existence. I, a yogi, practice like this. If you desire liberation, you should do likewise. Okay, so he said basically we have to rely on wariness. You see, we have to contemplate again and again and again and again the defect of cyclic existence. And because if we do not get somehow disgust, you see, disenchanted, completely disenchanted by what cyclic existence has to offer, we will never generate this strong wish to gain liberation. And without generating this strong wish, you see, to get liberation, this definite emergence, this desire to emerge from suffering, we will not be able to produce the level of effort that is required to realize emptiness directly. That's it. So see, the more we contemplate the suffering of cyclic existence, the more we get discouraged, you see, by cyclic existence, the more we get weary by cyclic existence. It's like it becomes unbearable. It is like we have to view cyclic existence as being sitting, as being same as being sitting on the needle. Wherever you put yourself is uncomfortable. It has to come to that. And in this way, we have the basis, you see, to generate in ourselves the three higher training in ethic, three higher training in concentration, and therefore, on the top of that, the three higher training in wisdom. Okay. So therefore, he said, therefore, cherish the knowledge that binds you to cyclic existence, because it is what has to be extinct. It is what has to be cut. What's bind us to cyclic existence, it is this wrong mind. It is the mind that is confused with respect to the nature of reality. It is the mind that is adding. It adds a characteristic. It adds an attribute. It adds an attribute to phenomena. What is adding is adding natural existence, inert existence, true existence, whatever, existence from his own side. So what we have to do, we have to realize through an analytical process that what is added by the mind is in fact added by the mind. It does not exist from the side of the object. We have to understand that it is just a distortion of reality. It is caused by the mind. Okay. We have to come to that. And so initially, it is done through a conceptual process, through analytical process by using reason. And then eventually, it culminates with the direct experience. The mind fuse with this object in meditation. But this is very far. Okay, and then we move on. Okay, so now we have, so you see, to sum up this section, we can again quote the three principal aspects of the past. So Lama Tsong Khapa says, when by having trained in that way, there is no arising, even for a second, of attraction for the perfection of cyclic existence, and all day and night the intention seeking liberation arises, then the thought of renunciation have been generated. Okay, so now we enter into the Mahayana, the great scope section of the text, and I'm going to have to share my screen with you. Okay, so we were no. We were here. Okay, so we have finished that part of the training. So now we are entering into training the mind in a great scope. Okay, the capacity, the attitude of the beings of the great scope. And as Lama Tsong Khapa says in his three principal aspects of the past, he says, even if renunciation has been developed if it is not possessed by the mind of enlightenment, I mean, if that renunciation is not held by the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, it does not become the cause of perfect bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. He said, therefore, the wise generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. So what is this supreme mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta? It is the intention. It is defined by Maitreya in his Abhisamaya Lankara as the desire to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, for the welfare of all sentient beings. That's what bodhicitta is. That's what the mind of enlightenment is. Okay, it is the desire to achieve highest enlightenment, Buddhahood, for the welfare of all sentient beings. So you see, it is not like I want to become Buddha because it is nice and because it is happiness, and when I will be there, then I will benefit others. It does not work like this. The main intention for the bodhisattva, his main object of intent, you see, is the happiness of others. It is to protect others from suffering. His mental continuum as being deeply transformed by love and great compassion, and his main scope is to protect beings from the suffering. And he sees that the only possibility to do that is to become Buddha. So as I said last time, you see, it's like if you want to drink tea, the main scope is to drink tea, but first you need a cup as a means. So to fully accomplish the welfare of sentient beings, you need to become Buddha. That's it. So therefore, the practitioner, it will generate the mind of bodhicitta, and then train into the Mahayana paths. He will traverse the 5 paths and the 10 bhumis, and culminate with the state of Buddha, where he will have full power to achieve the benefit of others. So that's pretty much how it works. So the mind, once you have generated the mind of bodhicitta, you become a bodhisattva, and you enter, and we enter the Mahayana path. So the condition for being called a bodhisattva or a child of the conqueror or a Mahayanist, or the condition for being inside of having entered, you see, having entered the Mahayana path, is to have generated in your mental continuum uncontrived bodhicitta. Uncontrived bodhicitta. So right now we train in bodhicitta. I mean, through a process of contemplation, of analysis, we induce by reflection this mind, and then we familiarize with it again and again and again. This is called contrived bodhicitta. Okay, is that the time of the training. And once that, due to a process of familiarity, that mind, you see, arise all the time, day and night, and that everything that we do is to attain enlightenment. So we can use this this definition given by Lama Tsong Khapa, this measure given by Lama Tsong Khapa with respect to the mind of renunciation. Okay, so when day and night, he said that with respect to the renunciation, when day and night, everything that you see, there is this intention to seek liberation that arises in the mind, then you have entered you have generated the mind of renunciation, of definite emergence. Then we can say also the same for bodhicitta. When day and night, you see, the intention to achieve the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of others arise in the mind, then we have generated the mind of enlightenment, and we have entered the Mahayana path, and we can be called a we actually call bodhisattva. Okay, so that was so in terms of the training. Okay, it goes through different steps. So first there is the contemplation or the benefit of generating the mind of bodhicitta. So basically, you see, generating the mind of bodhicitta, when someone has generated the mind of bodhicitta, then he goes from happiness to happiness, bliss to bliss, like unconceivable happiness to unconceivable happiness. Everything comes to him due to his attitude, which is only revolved toward the happiness of others. Then his happiness becomes as a secondary product. Due to the law of cause and effect, happiness, his own happiness comes as a secondary product, and it is actualized without minimally looking for it. So his mind is always says. So those beings, they have an unconceivable mind. The mind of bodhicitta is unconceivable. So there is two methods to generate this mind of bodhicitta, and one is called the method of the seven cause and effect. Where it is? It has to be here. Yeah, seven cause and effect here. And the other method, which is largely explained into this masterpiece of the Mahayana scriptures, which is text written by Shantideva, the Bodhisattva Shayavatara, whereas the main method explained is exchanging oneself with other. So there's those two methods that can be practiced, okay, six cause and effect and exchanging oneself with other. Those two methods individually, they're able to produce the mind of enlightenment, the mind of bodhicitta. They said that the second method, the exchange self with other, produce a stronger mind. And there is also in the system of Lama Tsong Khapa a method that combines those two into 11 points, a training of 11 points that combine those two methods, seven cause and effect, and exchanging oneself with other. Okay. So now in terms of the text, we are stanza 21. It says the generation of the mind. Okay, so what we call generation of the mind or mind generation, it is a technical term for bodhicitta. Okay, technically it's called the mind generation. It says the nation of the mind, but this is the mind generation. It means bodhicitta. So mind generation is the central post of the Mahayana path. So what does that mean? It means that that mind, as we said before, determine if one has a Mahayana practice, if one has a Mahayana attitude, and if one has entered the Mahayana. Okay, so it is the basis for the entire Mahayana path. It is an extremely important, realization, important mind and attitude, and we should have. In our daily basis, we should try to generate this mind continuously and again and again in a contrived manner. And in this way, in the future, it will arise spontaneously. Okay. So then after it says the basis, the base and support. It is that mind, bodhicitta, it is the base and support of the great waves of the conduct. Okay. So the bodhisattva over the 10 grounds, it will accomplish the perfection, which are we will see later on. We have the perfection of generosity, the perfection of ethics, the perfection of patience, the perfection of joyous effort, the perfection of concentration, and the perfection of wisdom, which can be subdivided into 4. Therefore, we end up with 10 perfection. But the last 4 are subsumed into the perfection of generosity, making 6 perfection. Okay, so through the practice of the 6 perfection, it will accumulate. It will complete the 2 collections. The bodhisattva will complete the 2 collections of merit and wisdom that will produce the 2 body of the Buddha, the form body and the Dharmakaya. Okay, so the mind of the Buddha is mainly produced by the perfection of concentration and the perfection of wisdom, and the body of the Buddha, the form body of the Buddha, is mainly produced by the other perfection. And we also said that the perfection of effort contribute to both collection. At each, so there is 10 ground, or let's say there is the first 6. And at each ground, the bodhisattva will attain a surpassing practice in a particular perfection. So first of all, to be a perfection, okay, so we have to distinguish between, for example, generosity and the perfection of generosity. And we have to distinguish between ethic and the perfection of ethic, etc., etc. So if it is a generosity, it is not necessarily a perfection of generosity. To be a perfection of generosity, it has to be held by the mind of bodhicitta. The person who practices generosity has to generate the motivation, you see, thinking that I'm going to practice generosity. In this way, I can complete the two accumulation and attain the state of Buddhahood. If generosity is practiced within that frame of mind, then it becomes something similar to a perfection, even though it is not a contrived, it is still a contrived bodhicitta. Okay, so of course for the bodhisattva it is uncontrived. So therefore, it will have to be a perfection of generosity. Okay, and it has to be in the context of a superior being. You see, it is also held by the mind understanding the three sphere, but we will come to that. So, so we have two things here. We have three things actually. We have generosity, we have the perfection of generosity, and we have the surpassing perfection of generosity. So the surpassing, to attain a surpassing perfection of generosity or surpassing perfection, you have to actualize the ground on which that practice become completely surpassed, consumed. Okay, so we have said on the first ground, the bodhisattva, he attained the surpassing perfection of generosity. On the second ground, the bodhisattva attained a surpassing perfection of ethic. On the third ground, a surpassing perfection of patience. On the fourth ground, a surpassing perfection of joyous effort. On the fifth ground, a surpassing perfection of concentration. And on the sixth ground, a surpassing perfection of wisdom. Okay, so it means that on those very level, that a particular practice is completely consumed. It cannot be practiced beyond that. On the first ground, there is a perfection of generosity which is actualized, and generosity cannot be practiced beyond that level. The quality is thoroughly consumed. Okay, so while, for example, the bodhisattva on the path of accumulation and the path of operation, he will practice a perfection of generosity, but it will not a surpassing practice of generosity, because the surpassing practice of generosity will be attained only on the first ground. Okay, those are maybe a bit technical, but just to keep it in mind. So anyway, the juice of this is that to practice a perfection, it has to be held by bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. And what does that mean? It means that for us, since we aspire to the state of Buddha, we aspire to become bodhisattva, we aspire to enter the Mahayana, therefore we should put effort in generating the mind of enlightenment, and we should put effort also to accustom ourselves with this mind of enlightenment. Therefore, when we do whatever we do, we should try always to be under the influence of that mind. Okay, then everything that we do in this way can become a similitude of a Mahayana practice, and it becomes very powerful in terms of its result. Okay. Where am I? Okay, so this is so okay. So it's a if you where is the 10? Oh, it gets here. The base and the support of the great wave of conduct. You see, so there's incredible action that are carried on by the Bodhisattva over 3 countless eons for the purpose, you see, to attain the state of Buddhahood. So all of this generosity, all of this ethic and effort and patience, you know, so those great wave of action for the welfare of others. Okay, and it says that the bodhicitta is a philosopher's stone, transforming all into the two collection. So you say you have this philosopher's stone, which transform iron or lead into gold. Basically, that's the principle. You know, it transform like something unprecious into something very precious. So you see, for the one who have bodhicitta in his heart, everything that he does become the cause of the state of Buddhahood, become the cause for the happiness of others. So all day that person is involved into accomplishing the benefit of others, and everything that he does becomes the cause for the attainment of enlightenment. So what does that mean? Is that even the most insignificant action, because it is held by this mind that wish to attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings, becomes a cause for the attainment of Buddhahood and becomes extremely heavy in terms of results. Okay, so there's you see the difference between offering a single candle, for example, to the Mahabodhi Stupa. You see, you go to the Mahabodhi Stupa and you offer a single candle, and the karma for this is already, you see, unconceivable due to the power of the object. But if a bodhisattva does the same thing, okay, single candle, we cannot start to conceptualize, we cannot start to compare the power and the result of those two actions, simply because his motivation, you see, his mind observe all sentient beings. His motivation observe all sentient. It is done for the benefit of all sentient. It is not for the benefit of a single being. You see, myself, you know, I offer this, you see, but his mind observe the benefit of all sentient beings included in the whole universe. Therefore, you see, the impact, the power of this motivation will greatly influence the result of this action. So it is said that even if a single ordinary beings offered, you see, like, I don't know, like continuously for over an extensive period of time, offerings of precious substance, whatever, to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, it does not match a single act of offering accomplished by a Bodhisattva. It does not match. So this is why when you have this motivation, then everything that you do becomes incredibly powerful. And as a result, you see, as the result of such a mind, then you go from happiness into happiness, from happiness to happiness, happiness to happiness, happiness to happiness. It is even said that the happiness which is experienced by the Bodhisattva on the first ground, on the first, not even later on, okay, but the first ground, it is superior that the bliss of the individual liberation experienced by the Arat. And there is this in the Madhyamika, in the first chapter, where they explain the Bodhisattva, the first ground, attained the perfection of generosity. His mind has been so conditioned by great compassion and love that when the Bodhisattva he hear from someone, "Help me," or "I need this," then there is an ecstatic state of bliss which is experienced that pervade the mind of the Bodhisattva. Just because someone needs him, you see, he is ecstatic. And he says that bliss is superior to the happiness of the individual liberation. Conceivable. This is what it says in the Madhyamika. Anyway, so then after the text go on, then he said, it is a treasure of merit gathering infinite virtue. So the Bodhisattva has to accumulate the two collections for 3 countless great eons. Okay, so it is the state of Buddhahood is produced by those 2 accumulation of merit and wisdom that is similar to an accumulation performed over 3 countless eons. So with this mind of bodhicitta, he said that this accumulation is actualized. Yeah. And he gives infinite courage to the bodhisattva practice those 10 perfection, those 6 perfection, for such an amount of time. And this is only possible by this mind of bodhicitta, which is the mind of great courage. And it says, having understood this, the heroic children of the conqueror mainly maintain deeply the pledges of the supreme, of the precious supreme mind. Okay, so it is called the heroic children. Okay, because the bodhisattva dedicate his life to the welfare of others. And so this is very heroic. And by exclusively, you see, dedicating his life to the welfare of others, then it is said in the text that as the secondary product, one achieve his own welfare. So if we look at the state of Buddhahood, it is said that one's own welfare is actualized by the Dharmakaya, okay, the complete cessation of all the obscuration. This is one's own welfare. And the bodies of the Buddha and the different level of manifestation, coarse and subtle manifestation of the omniscient mind, the Sambhogakaya and the Niyamanakaya, this is for the benefit of others. But from his own side, for the Buddha, the Dharmakaya is enough. Yeah. And he say, maintain deeply the pledges of the precious mind. So okay, so there is like different type of, so in terms of so there is 2 types of bodhicitta. Okay, there is the bodhicitta of aspiration, which is the mere wish to attain the state of Buddhahood, and there is the bodhicitta of engagement. So first there is the bodhicitta of aspiration, and then subsequently, once the vows of the bodhisattva are assumed, then it becomes the bodhicitta of engagement. So the analogy is similar to wishing to go to India, for example, or I wish to go to India. So this is the bodhicitta of aspiration. And then you buy the ticket and you go to the airport. Okay, and this is the bodhicitta of engagement. You actually perform. So here the bodhicitta of engagement, it is once you have assumed the 18 root vows and the 46 secondary vows of the bodhisattva, which by practicing those vows, automatically you train in the 6th perfection. So by taking those vows, then it is just a training into the 6th perfection. Okay. So in terms of, in general, there is the bodhisattva has 3 types of it has to generate the quality that are not being generated. He has to increase the quality that have already been generated, and he has to abandon all defect. So pretty much that's what the bodhisattva does. Okay, that's the heroic children of the conqueror. Yeah. So in terms of generating this mind of bodhicitta, we said that there is 2 methods: the method of exchanging self and others, explained by Shantideva, and the method of 6 cause and 1 effect, which were brought by Atisha he's traveling in Sumatra, in Indonesia, and so there is a preliminary to this training of 6 cause and effect. It is first to train in equanimity. Okay, so to train in equanimity means to have to actualize your feeling, so your attitude. Let's say your attitude with respect to the 3 categories of beings that we have normally. We have friend, enemy, and strangers. Okay, that's the 3 categories. As long as we have those, as long that we have that. So what we are to eliminate here is not the discrimination of a friend, enemy, and stranger, because this is a convention. Okay, there are some people who wish you well, there are some people who wish you bad, and there are a 3rd category. So this will never change. It cannot change. Okay, what we try to eliminate here is our attitude, bias attitude that we have over those 3 categories of people. So whatever it is, a friend, an enemy, or a stranger, we should have the same wish to benefit those beings. Okay, So be careful. It's not the discrimination to discriminate. It's not the discrimination of friend, enemy, and stranger, because this is based on conventional reality and fact. It is our attitude, our biased attitude, that we have towards three categories. So we should equalize. Those three categories should be equalized. Thinking, you see, for example, so you have to look into, we cannot do that now because it would take not just like another 7 sessions just for that. Okay, but look into the lam-rim Chenmo and you will have a great detailed explanation. So basically, everything is self-centered. We have the discrimination because it's completely self-centered. Those who wish me well, those who help me, those who think like me, they are my friend, and the other, they are my enemy. So you have to think that you've been caught up in cyclic existence since infinite lifetime, and all of this being at some point, they have been they're very close to you. They have been your dear friend, your parents, your brother, sister, whatever, and that very person, you see, which now is your dear friend, in some past life was your worst enemy, and vice versa. Your worst enemy now, in some past life, it was your best friend. So who actually you should really like cherish? Okay? The one which benefited you in the past and harm you in the present, or the one who harm you in the past and benefiting you in the present? It's completely equal. It doesn't make any sense. You see, it is just it is having just a discrimination, like sealed, frozen in time. Okay, and everything in the future is completely uncertain. So we should try to equalize, you see, our attitude toward those beings thinking in this way. And then the training, when we have this as the base, the next steps of the training actually starts. And the first is to recognize all sentient beings as having beings one's mother. Okay, so they said that there is 2 extremely difficult realizations in the whole lam-rim. Those 2 difficult realizations are seeing the guru as the Buddha. And as we said before, this is only something which is relevant in the context of the Tantra. But because the lam-rim, the aim of the lam-rim is to prepare you for the Tantra, then those steps of training are already, they already come up in the lam-rim. So this is one. And the next one is to recognize all sentient beings as being one's mother. They're supposed to be the 2 most difficult realizations of the whole lam-rim. So you have to, you have to think that about the continuity of the mind. You see, you have to think about the continuity of the mind, and then you have to take in that countless lives as the human, countless life of the human, and then you have the animals and everything, but just even the countless life of the human. And in all this human life, you had a father and a mother. So the countless father and mother. You see, so if you ask yourself, where are those father and mother? They're just people around you. That's your father and mother of the past. Definitely. So of course, it's you have to think in this way, okay, and try to get familiarized with this notion, okay. And then once you have trained in this thought, you have to remember their kindness. So you have to take, for example, the mother of this life, or if you have difficulty with your mother, you take another being, and then you think about how kind she has been with you. She has been for you in this life. So you remember the kindness. So you visualize your mother, and then you remember her kindness. You see the love and compassion, and so you have to think about how she treated her own body and her own life while she was pregnant. So for the first 9 months, she almost stopped to consider as her body being hers, So she gave up comfort, she gave up likings, she experienced a lot of pain. And then after, when we were born, we were completely helpless. We couldn't have been able to survive for a couple of hours by ourselves. So she protected us, she fed us, she gave us, she gave up sleep for us. She gave up sleep. She washed us, cleaned us. She take care of when we were sick. She cooked for us. She provided enjoyment, money, education. She felt emotionally supportive in every aspect of her life. She even paid for own object of desire. So basically, you see, we have been at the center of our attention, the center of our love, before we were even thrown in this life. And this attitude will stop only when she will stop breathing, basically. So by thinking in this way again and again, we generate an attitude, you see, of love and compassion toward our mother. And then after you think that your father has been your mother also infinite times, and he had the same attitude. Then you take your brother, sister. You see, you expand until you take into consideration all sentient beings, and you think that when those beings, they were your mother, they had exactly the same attitude. Yeah. So in this way, you have the basis to develop this the third step, which is the desire to repay the kindness. Okay, so you think, having recognized, you see all of this being and your mother, you recollect their kindness again and again, and yeah, and then you think that now you are a human being. You see, you have met the Dharma and everything. Therefore, you have it is now your time. It is now up to us to pay back, basically. So you generate this desire to repay this infinite kindness that sentient beings have shown us since beginningless time, and we have only we have only taken. So now it's time to pay back. Yeah. And then the next step is how you start. How do we start to give back? You see, the kindness of sentient beings. We start by generating love, which is unconditional love or immeasurable love. Okay, so we have to meditate in this way. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. So to do that, you can start, you see, to visualize first your mother, or first someone for which it's very easy to have this attitude of love. You reflect how his or her life is completely deprived of real happiness, completely deprived. This is only problem. See, only difficulties and satisfaction. It's completely deprived of real happiness. And then you think how wonderful it would be if this person would have the real happiness. See, and then so you let this feeling to grow in your mind. So you generate your mind into this attitude, and then after you extend it to your brother, sister, friends, strangers, enemy, until with a single thought you're able to encompass all sentient beings. Yeah? And that's your object of meditation. So your attitude of love should encompass all sentient beings from the deepest hell up to the peak of cyclic existence. Yeah. And then based on that, we train in great compassion, which is the same, except that this attitude, your process is the same. First, you visualize one person, and this time you think about her suffering, or his or her suffering, the suffering of sickness, birth, sickness, old age, and death. And then you generate this desire, how wonderful it would be if that person would be free from the suffering and its cause. And then you expand, and then you expand. And there is an extremely useful verse by Lama Tsong Khapa, again, in this three principal aspect of the past, where it says he exhorts us to meditate in this way to develop the mind of bodhicitta and compassion. He said, and he described the situation of sentient beings extremely, it's very brilliant. He said, swept away by the current of the four powerful rivers. So you see the four powerful rivers are the river of birth, aging, sickness, and death. So we are swept away by the current of the four powerful rivers, tied by the tight bonds of karma, so hard to undo, caught in the iron net of self-grasping, and completely enveloped by the total darkness of ignorance. Yeah, I say, endlessly reborn in cyclic existence, ceaselessly tormented by the three suffering, thinking that all mothers are in such condition, generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. So you see, if we start to think, when we view sentient beings, if we start to think of them in this way, there is no much space to for aversion. There is no much space for pride, and we have to change. You see, the outlook, how we view sentient beings. And if we start to consider sentient beings with this in this way, then love and compassion would arise, and then therefore the mind of enlightenment. So that stanza, His Holiness also said that we can use it to reflect over our own suffering. He said that we can use exactly the same stanza, but instead of saying like all sentient being, you say I am I am ceaselessly tormented by the three suffering. Yeah. We can use that same stanza to generate the mind of definite emergence, and also you can use this stanza after to generate the mind of great compassion and bodhicitta. So our desire, you see, it is not possible, and I'm gonna wrap it up. It is not possible to generate the mind of bodhicitta. It is not possible to generate the mind of great compassion if first we have not generated the mind of definite emergence up to a certain level. Why? Because this mind of great compassion and bodhicitta wish to liberate sentient beings from cyclic existence. So this means that first we must have had this wish for ourselves. Otherwise, it is impossible to wish something for someone that you do not wish for yourself. So we must have first contemplated, you see, deeply the reality of our situation, the reality of our suffering, and to have compassion for ourselves, and therefore to wish for ourselves liberation. And once you have that, you apply that same understanding to others. And then love and compassion and bodhicitta will arise. So generating bodhicitta and great compassion will never be possible before our mind has been ripened and transformed and touched by the contemplation of the middling scope. Okay, so this is why you see the training comes in this way. Again, there is a reason why. There is a reason, you see, because the higher contemplation, they are based on the lower contemplation, and the full-fledged realization, the full-fledged state of mind will not be generated if the base before has not been fully generated in the mind as well. Okay, so just be aware of this, that to be able to generate the great compassion, and the mind of enlightenment, then the wish for liberation has to be also be generated first, because what you wish is the liberation. So if you don't understand your own suffering, it is not possible to understand the suffering of other, and how vast and deep it is, and therefore also wish them liberation. And then after, so once you have trained yourself into the mind of great compassion, then there should arise the mind of what we call the mind of the superior intention. The superior intention. So that superior intention, it is exclusive to the Mahayana. It is the mind that think, okay, it's now my responsibility. I'm going to take now on myself to actualize the benefit of all sentient beings. You see, you have to meditate in this way, to have to to determine, to take the responsibility to actually and actively liberate sentient beings from their suffering. Okay, and by reflecting, so there will be the reflecting that if we have actually the possibility to do that, and it is very easy to understand that we don't, and by reflecting on who has this possibility, we came to the understanding that only someone who has eliminated the two levels of obscuration and completed the path will have this ability. And therefore, the mind of bodhicitta will arise as a result of this training. You see, it is the result of these 6 training steps. There is a gradual training in 6 steps, and the result is the mind of enlightenment. Okay. So yeah, that's it. And then there is also the method of exchanging self and other, but this we will not do it together, and just go and look for yourself into the different texts. And the best, I mean, when we talk about the training of the bodhisattva and the activities and the behavior of the bodhisattva and the training in the 6th perfection, the best is the Bodhisattva Shaivatara. That's really the masterpiece of the whole Mahayana. Okay, so we'll stop here. So next week we have this our last session. So we will quickly go through the enumeration of the 6th perfection. We will just give like some entity and what is the perfection of generosity, what is the perfection of patience, blah blah, and then we will stop at the perfection of wisdom. And we will reflect together on how to recognize the object of negation and how to analytically look for that object of negation and realize its non-existence. And then we'll talk about the dependent. We'll try to associate, see the meaning of emptiness with the meaning of dependent arising. Okay, so that's the program for the next week. And it is very auspicious because next week is the day of where the enlightenment of the Buddha, you see, is celebrated. And what would be best just to talk about that subject? You see, when we talk about in the Abhisamayalankara, there is the 173 aspect. You see, the mind of the Buddha, the omniscient mind, is characterized by 173 aspects, which are like a jewel with 173, you see, facets. And one of these facets, it's called the attribute of thusness, emptiness. So what does that mean? It means that it is a particular attribute to the Buddha to teach emptiness, and that the Buddha come to this land specially to teach emptiness. So this is why he has the attribute of thusness. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll meet next week. Okay. So please, as usual, we dedicate for this pandemic to quickly come to an end, and in particular, for situation in India, so for to receive, all the help that they need. Quickly come to an end, and also for we think we have to direct also our thought to the personnel in the hospital, the medical staff, and everything, for them to be safe, for them to have strength to receive whatever the supply they need, and to have success in their activity. We also dedicate for all the people who have died from this pandemic, and for them to have a precious human rebirth and meet the Mahayana virtuous spiritual friend, and quickly progress along the path. Okay, so in this way. Okay, so thank you very much. Please stay safe. Okay, so maybe we can do a general dedication.
May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise. May that arise, not decline, but increase more and more. Samsara and Nirvana lack even an atom of inherent existence, and cause and effect and dependent arising unbetrayed. I seek your blessings to discern the meaning of Nagarjuna's thought. These two are mutually complementary and not contradictory.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you so much, Venerable.
have a good week and see you next time. Okay.
Thank you.
Venerable.
Thank
And
you so
God bless.
much.